they're going to have to bring back a tire that lasts longer than 30 laps. I think more of the question is just figuring out, how did it happen?
I've never liked the idea of the PJ1 resin or anything, I call it grip spray, on Bristol racetrack.
The drivers were really funny during the race.
Yes.
I mean, I know it wasn't funny to them.
You know, you never know when you're just going to have an off weekend.
I've kind of gotten the ability to have the platform that I want, and it is my platform, and I can speak to whatever I feel like talking about.
We were in the mix, and it makes it a lot more fun when you're in the mix than you are just, struggling and trying to figure out what direction to go.
Yeah, it's tough, and sorry for being bouncy the roads here.
It's like if you have, the all-you-can-eat buffet every single day of the week, people are going to get tired of it, right? So if it's a special thing, I think people get more excited for it.
Hi, Bo.
Raise your hand up so she can see it. There you go.
Truthfully, even as a company, I think it was, very head-scratching why at the beginning all four of us just went instantly straight to the back. We just really struggled.
Welcome on to the Backstretch. I am News 5's Heather Williams. Ooh, Bristol, baby. If you didn't love that race, I'm not sure you really love racing. It was just unpredictable, lots of passing, just unexpected chaos. I mean, right now we're going through March Madness, right? And what everybody loves about March Madness, why the NCAA basketball tournament is so successful, especially the first opening weekend, is because you don't know what's happening. You do not see Oakland and Duquesne coming from 1,000 miles away. You might pick one or the other, but both. There's a reason why there's only one perfect bracket out there right now in the ESPN Bracket Challenge. It's unpredictable. And that's what Bristol was. Could you have predicted Denny Hamlin as the winner? Sure, he won here in the fall. That's completely predictable. But all the stuff he went through and all the things that went on in the in-between parts to get Denny to victory lane, nobody saw that coming. And it was fantastic. The buzz around the garage area during the race, during practice and qualifying, which I got to be a part of the broadcast team for PRN for, after the race, it was palpable. People were excited about short track racing, something that hasn't happened in a long time, at least during the next gen era of NASCAR, because the next gens just haven't performed very well on the short tracks. And maybe this is what we were missing, tire wear. Going into the weekend, everybody was buzzing and complaining they wanted more horsepower. But I think we showed this weekend, you don't need horsepower to have great racing if you have these other elements. So maybe this is the happy accident that becomes our happy medium. It was fun. It was exciting. Do we want 30 laps of tire wear before they completely fall off and chaos ensues? Probably not every week, but 60 certainly makes it more interesting. 75, so that you're just slightly under a fuel run before you have to get tires, so that when you come in, you don't necessarily consider gas only when you come and get some have a pit stop where there's some strategy involved where people can use tires or gas only or do some things to mix up the field. I think that's exactly what we needed on the short track. So I was super excited about how Bristol turned out. Also pretty excited about how Bristol turned out is our crew chief, Chris Carrier, who is, of course, always going to stop out at Henderson Motorsports and talk to him, his thoughts on the weekend, as well as his upcoming race at COTA. And then our guest this week is Michael McDowell. Talk about COTA. It's a guy to keep your eye on. He's become one of the more accomplished road course racers in the garage area. I mean, he's always been, but people are starting to realize that they're starting to see it. He dominated last year at the Indy Road Course. He'll be a player this week, I think, at COTA as well. So Michael will stop by, talk a little bit about Bristol, look ahead to COTA. That'll be fun. So let's get our first guest with Chris. Welcome on to the Backstretch. I am joined, as always, by our crew chief, Chris Carrier, who's also the crew chief for the number 75 Food Country Truck in the Craftsman Truck Series. So, Chris, we have to start where everybody is talking this week, since the checkered flag, really since the green flag dropped at Bristol on Sunday, and that's tires. The tire wear was unbelievable. led to a record 54 passes in the race. What was the deal with the tires this weekend?
Heather, I'm not a tire expert. I don't want to speak for Goodyear. I don't want to speak for the teams or anybody else. But you know, they got kind of caught, I guess, in a situation. The old saying, got caught with your pants down a little bit. But I think the thing about it is, it was completely unexpected. It was a huge surprise, shock, whatever you want to call it. And it was in a situation like, oh gosh, we're in this rampage river where we're fixing to get run over, and we don't really have a good way out. So, they start a 500 lap race, and all of a sudden the tires were wearing out way faster than any expectation. The last thing you want to do is put drivers in peril, put them in danger, but you want to try to keep the show going and try to figure out a way of, how can we do this? How can we make this happen? Make a good race for the fans, the spectators, the television audience, so on and so forth, and not create any peril for anybody else. So they mounted, I think, all the tires they had at the racetrack and tried to distribute them, evenly, fairly. And
Bubba Wallace actually wanted them to red flag the race, mount more tires back at Charlotte, and drive them 3 hours.
Yeah, well,
the drivers were really funny during the race.
Yes.
I mean, I know it wasn't funny to them, but it was funny to listen to as a spectator.
Yeah, and they probably had all kind of ideas about how to do it, how to fix it. And at the end of the day, if you're the one strapped in that thing, and you go out and as fast as Bristol is, and high banks, as much G-forces in those corners, if you blow a tire out, you're going to hit hard. I mean, it's going to hurt. So, they were thinking about that. They didn't want to be in that position, but yet they wanted to get to racing, and I'm sure they had, 100 thoughts going through their minds all the time out there. And to be a crew chief on the box, trying to mediate this, trying to keep your driver calm, trying to keep your pit crew calm, trying to figure out, okay, exactly how are we going to do this? And it ended up being, okay, we've got to stretch the life of these things, and we've got to run a little bit slower for a while. We got to really take care of them. We got to baby them. We can't abuse them. It's not going to work if we do. And at the end of the day, like you said, there was a record number of passes for the lead. There was a lot of passing period on the racetrack. People in two lines going by one another, some quite a bit slower or quite a bit faster for a while, and then 10 laps later, the guy that was fast would be getting past going the other way. So very interesting, very, at the end of the day, I thought Denny Hamlin did the best job of managing the situation, and that's why he won the race.
And really, it was a situation where hardly a young gun was found by the end of the race. Ty Gibbs led a significant amount of laps in the race, but when it came down to the end, the guys that were up front were Hamlin, Truex, Larson, Alex Bowman, guys that have been around for a long time because of the way they had to manage the tires.
Right. And I think that's part of the skill set and the art of short track racing, especially that maybe we haven't been able to see a lot of lately. In Bristol, maybe it was a little bit too far of a shot, but it was in that right direction. It's what, like you said, it's been what everybody's been saying they want. Maybe it was a little bit more, and maybe it was a little bit by accident. Didn't really plan it this way, but that's how it happened. And I've heard a different sort of comments from people I talk to every week about the racing, what it was, and at the end of the day, at least maybe we learned something here that, okay, how can we mild this up just a little bit, but come back here in September and maybe go where at the end of 100 laps or the end of 80 laps, these guys are going to be sliding around a lot, and they're going to know that, and they're going to say, okay, 30 laps in the run, I don't need to be punishing this car and punishing these tires because I got to save a little bit. And yeah, I might have some people pass me. A little while later, I might pass them back. That to me is what racing is about. That's old school. That's old school, bone deep, good time NASCAR racing. And hopefully we can take this and improve on it and see what happens next time.
So Denny Hamlin said, if we brought this tire back tomorrow, exactly the way it was and didn't change anything, that the teams would adapt and adjust, and there wouldn't be as much fall off because of the way they set the cars up. So you're the grand poobah of the Cup Series now.
Oh boy.
What do you change before September, or do you change anything?
Well, me personally, I've never liked the idea of the PJ1 resin or anything, I call it grip spray, on Bristol racetrack. Now there are other racetracks that it may work well at. It may result with better racing overall. It may result with actually better tire wear. It may give positive results. But I think at Bristol Speedway, to be quite honest with you, Heather, I would like to just see them leave it alone. Come in there and just race on Bristol Speedway. Don't try to trick it. Don't try to make it better than what it is, because for us in the Truck Series, it makes a one-groove racetrack for too long. And then by the time the Cup Series gets in, usually, now this really didn't happen Sunday, but they'll have two grooves going in anyway, and I think that's going to be the case if they leave the thing alone. The Cup race is going to be two grooves. It's going to be really good racing. There's going to be way less carnage, and I think then it'll be easier, to me, it'll be easier for the teams and Goodyear to bring a tire and to bring cars that are going to be like, okay, we know that we're going to fall off in about 50 laps. Them lap times are going to start dropping off pretty bad. The tires are going to start falling off. By 100 laps, we're going to need to change. We're going to need to change tires before the fuel runs out. It's going to be overall better racing. It's going to be putting it back in the driver's hands to use their heads as well as their feet and their arms. So that's my take on it.
So we've had 5 winners in 5 races. This has kind of become the standard almost with the next-gen car, which I love because I just think it helps add to the unpredictability of going to the track every week. But if you're looking at the guys who need to win or need to have a big performance here in the next couple of weeks, what teams are you looking at? Because I got a couple.
Wow. There's several out there. I think about Joey Logano has run well.
He's top of my list.
I talked to Paul Wolf a little bit Saturday. I've got good friends that work on that team, and I said, man, you just haven't had much luck, have you? He just shook his head. He said, no, but for the most part, at least they're qualifying. Their speed has been there. It just doesn't seem like they've been able to put a race together with a good result, and I think that would be the one to start with. We were talking about the Keselowski teams, we're back, not running good. Well, now they're starting to run good, and I think their success is just going to come. It's going to be there. And I don't think anybody at Penske Racing is pushing the panic button right now. They know they've got drivers and crew chiefs and equipment and people that are going to be able to win races in this. And again, you got to remember the big picture has changed since the playoff system. The big picture now is to win a race. That gets you in the playoffs, or pretty much gets you in the playoffs, pretty much for sure. So they're thinking about, okay, how can we win a race here pretty soon so we can get that monkey off our back? And I'm thinking, you got to think about Alex Bowman. I don't know. There's several more. I'd be interested to know the ones you
Well,
have.
I look at 2311, right? I mean, Bubba Wallace, he went top five to start the year, and then has just been a back marker almost since they left the super speedways, which he always had the reputation of being a super speedway racer. Last year he kind of kicked that, like he was good on all, he even had good runs on the road courses.
Sure.
But that hasn't resurfaced this year. And not only is Bubba struggling, but Tyler Reddick is also struggling this year. Both those teams are way further back than they were at this point last year. So I'm a little bit concerned about them and the way that they're driving. I'm also a little bit concerned about Chase Elliott. It's been a long time since Chase has had a really good run. I think this week at COTA, it is imperative that he get up to the front. Top 10, top 5, for the confidence of that team. Because they haven't really run. I mean, they've had some top 10s, they've had some decent runs, but they haven't really run it the way that Hendrick Motorsports runs since his leg injury.
No, and that's a factor to me, is like it's got to be sticking in his mind in the back, and it's probably sticking in the mind of the people around him. Like, okay, is he rebounded from this? I mean, pretty serious. That's pretty serious injury. That wasn't just a fall down and turn my ankle type deal. He's not a kid anymore. He is to me, but everybody is to me. But it's got to be in the back of the mind of everybody. Like, okay, what's going on here? Can we get this guy back in Victor Lane and this team? And I agree, he's been a road course animal in the past couple 3 years, and he's been the guy. So I think this week at COTA, I think a lot of eyes are going to be on him, and I think the team might be feeling maybe a lot of pressure. Like, okay, we need to do well here. If not win a race, we need to be right there, banging on the door, trying to get in that top 5 and trying to win the race, just to get the mojo back, just to be like, okay, now the 9 team is back. We've got Chase Elliott. We're a threat to win any and everywhere we go.
So this week at COTA, you guys are racing in the truck race. Ma'am. It's a race that you guys have raced a lot in the past. Mm-hmm. So what's the key to getting around COTA? What makes COTA different than some of these other road courses that we go to?
I think there's about 4 really hard braking zones that are at the end of fast sections, long straightaways, and fast sections of the racetrack. I think managing that, it's really, COTA's not a place where you're going to, in the trucks anyway, you're not going to wear your brakes out and you're probably not going to overcook them because you've got so much time that you're off the brake. Those long straightaways give the brakes so much time to cool, and sometimes that's not a good thing, because if you get them too cool, they actually chatter. When you put the brakes on, the compound of the pad doesn't adhere well to the rotor, okay, and it will actually cause a chatter. So the driver has to be conscious of this on, okay, how much do I use my brake fans? How much cooling do I give them here? That's a key, but it's really like all of the road courses. You've got to find that balance between turning ability, especially in the slow corners, and then the ability to get the throttle down and not spin your rear tires coming off the corners, especially the ones that are coming onto the long straightaways. Because if you waste time off the throttle because you're spinning the rear tires coming off little tight corners coming onto the long straightaways, you give up a lot of time and a lot of speed down those long straightaways, and that just kills your lap times, kills your ability to pass, kills your ability to protect your own position. So it's a beautiful place. It's a hard road course in all those aspects. They've done some paving this time in about 4 different sections, where mostly those little sharp corners that have the hard time getting off those corners and spinning the rear tires, they've repaved those sections. So everybody's going to be kind of curious as to how much that's going to change, how much that's going to help. May make a little bit of a different race out of it. Looks like the weather's going to be good, so thank goodness. I hope we don't have to run in the rain. I'm sorry, a lot of drivers like it.
Your old driver loved running in the rain.
Oh, my old driver Parker would run in the rain. He would want him to schedule a race in the rain. Let's go. And if it rained harder, he wanted to go qualify and try to break the land world speed record. And I'm over there like, get me out of this. I don't like being in the rain. So anyway, we'll see what happens. Looks like I think you'll see competitive racing this weekend. COTA lends well to that, and I don't think it'll be any different. I think all 3 races this weekend will be good races.
Well, let's just get fired up, Michael. First of all, thanks for joining me today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
I mean, I guess we have to start with Bristol, right? That was crazy. What were kind of your thoughts on what happened? Because I know, developments with the tires started showing up in practice on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. That's not uncommon though when you get to, especially concrete tracks like Bristol or Dover, and there hasn't been a lot of activity on the track, or, it sits overnight, rubber gets picked up. So practice, you typically have high tire wear. But I think we all kind of anticipated that this might be something unique and different than we've had in years past. So the race, I thought was really challenging. It's, obviously we figured out really quickly in those first, 50 laps that this was going to be a different style Bristol race than we've seen in years past. And so there was a lot going on as far as trying to figure out how to manage the tires, how hard to push, how hard not to push, where we're going to have enough sets. There's a lot of variables that were going on in the middle of the race there, and but it was a great race, a lot of fun. There was definitely challenging moments, but it was the same for everybody. Everybody had the same allotment of tires and similar tire wear too. So, it definitely made for an interesting Sunday.
So are you of the camp that you would like for it to be somewhat like this when you come back in the fall? I mean, probably not 30 laps before your tires fall off, maybe 50, 60 or something like that. But, or are you just like, I kind of wanted to go back to the way it was?
I'm not in either camp. I don't think. I think, obviously I believe that they're going to have to bring back a tire that lasts longer than 30 laps. I think more of the question is just figuring out how did it happen? And if we can figure out how it happened, then maybe we can start to do some of those things as we move forward with the short track programs. So, the drivers and the teams, you've heard us talk about, like, we need more tire wear. We need more fall off. You go to a place like Martinsville and you're only doing 2 tires, where in the past you would be screaming for 4 tires, 30 laps into a run like we saw at Bristol. So I think that, we need to go that direction. But learning how we got to where we got to at Bristol would probably be the first step.
So now you turn the page and go to COTA, which is completely different than not only Bristol, but really anything you've done all year. You're one of the guys that has a reputation of being a good road course driver. What's kind of the key to attacking COTA?
Yeah, it's a really proper racetrack as far as road course go. Formula One event, long sweeping corners, tight technical, lots of elevations. So COTA has it all. It really does. You have big braking zones, lots of passing opportunities, but tight, twisty, and then you have high speed S's. So, what it takes to make your car work in one area might not work in the other area. And it's a rhythm racetrack. It's a lot of fun. It's a challenge for sure. So, but the road courses have been really good to us. We definitely have, COTA circled as an opportunity for us to try to go out there and get a win. We've had a lot of speed lately, so we need to turn that speed into a win and get ourselves locked in the playoffs, especially early on here. It'd be really nice to do it.
That was kind of my next question. You obviously have this circled, not only for you, but I feel like working with Todd that you've rubbed off on him, because all of a sudden he's a good road course driver as well. I mean, for your organization, this has got to be a track that you really look forward to going to.
Yeah, definitely. And, Todd got the win in the truck series here too, I believe. So, he's got confidence going here. Todd's done a really good job road racing for sure. And, so his confidence is building. Our race cars, over the last 2 years have gotten better and better as we developed and worked, through setups and trying to find the right, combination that works. So I think both cars will have a good shot of running up front. But at a road course, anything can happen. I mean, you see it, it's wild. It probably won't be as wild as Bristol, but it's always a mixed bag of strategy and restarts and being at the right place at the right time. So yeah, there's so much that unfolds on a road course race that you have to really have everything go your way.
Front Row Motorsports been around for a while now, and always been a good team. But I feel like in the last couple of years, you guys have elevated yourself like a step up in the garage pecking order. Why do you think that is? Why all of a sudden did it click for you guys?
Yeah, I think it's not just one thing. I mean, you can't pin it on one thing. We've been growing for years and getting better and better and better. But, it always comes down to people. And we have great people at Front Row. And it's taken a while to get that mix and that combination of what we needed on the racetrack. And, this next gen car for sure is a big help for getting us closer to the competition. Our technical alliance in partnership with Ford Performance and, getting all that information and all the tools that help us not only be competitive, but stay competitive. So there's numerous things that have helped us kind of pick away at where we want to be. And so, yeah, it didn't happen overnight, as you guys know, but we're in a really good spot. Our cars are fast. We have a good team, good chemistry. The results are coming. They're not right where we want to be, but they're coming. And, this is a great year for us to showcase what we can do.
you're a guy that's really fought in this sport to get to where you are, to get your place in the sport, to get to an organization where you're winning. It kind of almost seems to me, I know you're a man of faith, that everything happens for a reason and God put you right in the right place at the right time in your career and for you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's been a lot of steps that in my career where you scratch your head and you go, oh no, what's going on here? Where is this going? And, more than anything is just, this has been, a lifetime dream to be competitive and to challenge for wins. And, it's taken us a long time to get here, but, I really feel like, we're building something. We've been building something. And that's fun. It's fun to be a part of. It's fun to see it start to work out because, as you know, it doesn't always work out, right? I mean, you can work and put all the effort into, and sometimes it just doesn't all align where you get to see, the fruit of your labor and see it to fruition. And so I'm thankful that I got to see all that we put into this program finally, come to where it's at today.
For my final thought this weekend, let's talk about NASCAR fans. I retweeted this if you follow me on Twitter at SportsHeather, and I honestly believe this, and that is, I think there's a certain segment of the NASCAR fandom, which I believe is the minority, but they are the loud minority, that will never be happy. Jeff Gluck, who is the outstanding writer for The Athletic, both he and Jordan Bianchi there at The Athletic do unbelievable work. He does a weekly poll, which I'm sure all of you or most of you are familiar with if you follow NASCAR at all. Was it a good race? And the fact that this Bristol race was like 97%, the fact that this Bristol race was only like the 6th highest Bristol race since he started doing this poll tells me that there's a certain segment of the NASCAR population that's going to complain no matter what NASCAR does. We could have a 5-wide finish at Bristol, 4 rows deep, and there would be certain people that would be like, well, back in the day, we never had X, Y, and Z. This race was everything that fans wanted to have. Record number of passes for the lead. Only 5 cars on the lead lap, which people always talk about. We want Bristol back, the old Bristol back in the day where, there was passing all over the track and, it was hard to finish at Bristol. That's what you got this week. That is absolutely what you got this week. Now, you may not be a great fan of how we got to that point, but you got old Bristol this week. And so if you're still not happy, you're probably never going to be happy. And maybe you should consider why or consider something else. I mean, I saw people say, oh, this is why I watch F1. Really? You think that was more boring than F1? I'm not sure at this point you even understand NASCAR racing or racing in general, but it's my opinion, right? I'm not a big F1 fan. Love the drivers and the personalities, which I think still is a big part of what people miss in NASCAR. The personalities are not Dale Earnhardt, Ricky Rudd, these bigger than life personalities. There's some that are great. I mean, I don't have a beef with anyone in the garage. I think they're all amazing people, great to talk to, more accessible than the previous generation was as far as getting a chance to talk to them. But they're not those bigger than life personas. But I still think the racing is as good as it's ever been in NASCAR. So if you don't like the personalities and you miss that, I'm 100% on your side. I get that. These are all much more polished, PR-friendly type drivers, which is great for us in the media, honestly. But I can get why the fans would miss, the more rough and tumble and raw type drivers that we had in the 70s, 80s, and starting into the 90s, it started to switch over. But to complain about the racing, at this point, I just feel like you're complaining to complain. You're complaining to complain. See, I can't even get it out because it's so ridiculous in my head, but you get what I'm saying. Thanks for joining us on the Backstretch. We'll see you next week.